Angling is a gentle sport. In Nottinghamshire, fishers are showing they can also be tough when their sport is threatened. The threat? Their new landlord, the local Wildlife Trust. Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust purchased the Attenborough Nature Reserve in December 2020. Now groups, including the Angling Trust and the Countryside Alliance, are fighting to save the right to fish there.
The Nottingham Anglers Association have been fishing the Attenborough Reserve, and it's a big reserve, a famous place for fishing, for well over 20 years, and others before that. It's a 380-acre site, and slowly but surely, the people managing that reserve, once the Wildlife Trust took over a few years ago, started squeezing the anglers out. And we got to the stage that in 380 acres, from a time when they were able to fish the whole of the reserve, which is just off the Trent, close to Nottingham, they were down to 25 pegs. Literally a tiny proportion of the water that was left was allowed for anglers. And so whilst angling hasn't actually been banned, what they've effectively done is squeeze the angling club out. And it's quite obviously part of a deliberate policy by Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust to ensure they have no angling whatsoever on their reserves, even when it's taken place there for generations. And that's in marked contrast to other wildlife trusts, many of whom encourage and even sell tickets for angling.
There's always a ripple effect to anything that comes about. So if one organisation does it, then it by dint of what they're doing, it's going to probably concertina out to others. So we have to look at this, and we actually have to nip it in the bud very, very quickly, because if this is allowed to go on, then one of the nation's favourite sports is going to really reap a very bitter harvest.
Martin says anglers are key to wildlife conservation.
Well, we think it's very regrettable. We actually think that, and we've said this in our correspondence with the new Chief Executive of Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust, anglers have far more in common with people who are actively out there trying to enhance and preserve the environment than we ever have in terms of issues that might divide us. That's why we worked with Wildlife Trust in the past on issues that would be damaging to angling and to the watercourses and to the wildlife and to the wetlands. We think it's immensely short-sighted, and I suspect what has happened, that unlike other wildlife trusts where fishing is allowed, I think there's probably an extremist element that of holding sway within that particular wildlife trust up in Nottinghamshire that want to push forward and make sure no angling occurs on any of their sites. And that's a policy that we are going to stand firm and challenge, and we want to see it reversed. We think it is completely unacceptable that wildlife trusts that get money from public purses should be discriminating against a perfectly lawful sport which governments of all political persuasions accept is a force for good.
The newly elected chairman of the Angling Trust, Sir Charles Walker MP, has raised the issue at Westminster.
And during that debate, can we celebrate those enlightened wildlife trusts that promote angling and call? And can we call out those such as the Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust, which states on its website that it has a long-standing policy of not allowing angling on any land for which it holds the angling rights? This recently brought it into conflict with the Nottinghamshire Anglers Association that last week was banned from the Attenborough Nature Reserve. Can I just say to the Leader of the House, anglers like me love our rivers and streams as much as football fans love their clubs. It is a visceral relationship, and Wildlife Trust should not get in between it.
Nottinghamshire is not the first wildlife trust to try to do this. Kent Wildlife Trust tried and failed to evict Bromley Anglers Association from lakes at Sevenoaks.
We come out of this on the track record of overturning a much more vehement, if you like, angling ban by the Kent Wildlife Trust down in Sevenoaks last year, which I think we covered on this channel. So, Angling Trust has got a pretty good track record of standing up for anglers' rights and challenging successfully restrictions or angling bans such as this.
The Angling Trust and the Countryside Alliance promote angling's many health benefits.
The value that's angling as a not just a recreation, but also something that helps mindfulness, well-being, and it's even, for goodness sake, it's even been offered by doctors as a way to get over certain mental health issues. So, there is a value in what we do, not just in the natural world.
Well, on the health aspect first, it's been acknowledged by the NHS, by the Home Office, and you can see by the number of social prescribers that push people with all sorts of issues to deal with towards angling as a very, very beneficial activity. It was also acknowledged in that exchange in the House of Commons between Sir Charles Walker, MP, who's soon to be the new chairman of the Angling Trust, and the leader of the House, Mark Spencer. MPs from right the way across the political spectrum are united that angling is a force for good, that it's a beneficial activity, has multiple benefits in terms of mental health, social development, and of course it teaches a lot of people about the importance of having a clean and healthy environment. It is clean rivers and a clean environment and a healthy environment and maximum biodiversity that creates the environment upon which our sport depends. So anglers are absolutely up there with people who champion environmental issues. That's why it's so regrettable to see Wildlife Trust taking this very blinkered attitude towards us.
In a statement, the Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust says, following the decision by Nottinghamshire Anglers Association not to renew their option on the fishing rights at Attenborough Nature Reserve, Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust announced a 12-month suspension of all fishing permits at the site. Despite the Trust's long-standing policy of not allowing angling on land for which it holds rights, the Trust was open to renewing the arrangement with the NAA due to our long working relationship, subject to a reduction in the number of fishing spots or pegs, in keeping with the charity's objectives of managing the reserve, a site of special scientific interest. The Nottinghamshire Angling Trust is meeting with the Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust to fight for the right to continue fishing on the 28th of July 2022.
We have Nottingham Anglers Association preparing a plan to deliver angling, not on the whole of the wildlife reserve, but on a far larger proportion of the reserve in a more suitable location at a price that is sensible and fair to everybody. So we will be putting proposals back to the trust to get angling back on Attenborough in a way that now allows their objectives to be realised and also allows the club to have a decent access to a reasonable amount of water at a fair price.
For more about the Attenborough gravel pits, visit the Nottingham Anglers Association website, nottinghamanglers.co.uk. And for our story about Bromley Anglers Association's victory, go to fieldsportschannel.tv/Kent Wildlife Trust.